Tēnā koutou e taku whānau, nau mai ki tēnei pāku kouhou. Ko wai tēnei e pāo nei rā, ko Nikki Penetito-Hemara, he puhi tēnei no ngā mātā waka, taki te muhoro tā mātā tua. He aha te kaupapa e whai ake nei, nau mana wahine, nau mai te pūrei, ko Tākaro te mauri o tēnei wananga, anei te whakatauki he tino marama. Kia kawe a tātou e te rehia, are mai ki ngā oi sister. Kei te rongo au, oi, te kuia i te pā, he tohu mo te nanakia, e ahara. He ao anō te Papa Tākaro, tuāhine, kia rere aito. Ui, tēnā tātou, e te whānau, e hui mai nei tēnei rā, au e kua pautaku hau. Engari, he timatanga noi ho tēnei mō tā tātou wānanga ipurangi, tuatahi ake, nau mai, hare mai te whānau. Welcome to our third Toi Tākaro webinar in this 4-part series. I'm super excited to introduce you all to the sisters today. Engari, ka te rā me whakapai te marae, mui te hākari, a bit of housekeeping, online tikanga, I guess. Like the other ones, like the other webinar that we've ran, we've got 2 tools, functions open for you today. So you've got the chat. I'm seeing it's popping off at the moment, which is awesome. Please use that to introduce yourself, nohea koe, ko wai koe, where are you beaming in from today. And then we've also got the Q&A for Pātai. So please use that for some Pātai. It's going to be a bit of a flowy kōrero today, and your participation in the Pātai space will be awesome for us. You can help lead the kōrero to wherever you want it to go. Awesome. All right. And so now, what have we got? A little bit of an overview of our webinar today. So we've had heaps of interest, which is awesome. I think we've had over 200 registrations for this kaupapa. So that's big mahi to you all for showing some interest in Tākaro, in particular, unapologetically wahine kōrero about Tākaro. But yeah, our webinar today centers on Wāhine Perspectives from the pā to the Papa Tākaro. Our kōrero today aims to dive deep into the lived realities of wahine Māori in the world of Tākaro, in the world of leadership and everything in between. The Oi sisters are going to aim to bring a kōrero that's pretty real, raw, relatable, relevant, full of heart. They'll unpack the many roles wahine hold, not only as māmā, as daughters, as aunties, as kaimahi, as changemakers in the community, and all through the lens of Tākaro. So yeah, hopefully today we'll explore what it means to be enablers of play as wahine who create and hold and protect space for others. Some of those insights that if you have had a chance to look at our OI reports, you will already know. But they'll also keep it honest around some of the challenges, some of the sacrifices, some of the invisible mahi that goes on behind the scenes and is often, comes with the role of enabling Tākaro. So yeah, just expect some big whakaaro, a few solid laughs, the kind of kōrero that grounds you but connects you and reminds you why wahine are not just part of the Tākaro space, but that we're shapeshifters within it. So yeah, all good. It's my privilege to introduce you guys now to the Oi sisters. We're missing one, we're down one today. I know Mariah has had to go off and do some pretty important mahi with some ministers, I think, so we gave her the pass. But first up we have Rangi Mārie Mills, who resides in the Hokianga, but has whakapapa ties to Waipounamu as well. She's a māmā of 2. She's a creative strategist, grounded in whenua. Her and Jared have a gangster mara up there in the north. If you know, you know. Rangi leads with imagination, clarity, colour, and a whole lot of vibe. So you can expect from her, no pressure, but you can expect from her some bold ideas, and some subtle, she's the queen of sound bites. So you can expect some subtle sound bites that will likely shift your thinking in some way, shape or form. And then we have the sis, Crystal. She's our Polynesian princess, actually, of Māori and Cook Islanders descent. Me taki mātā, happy Cook Island language week e te whānau. She's a māmā of 6 and a nan. She's a māmā of 6 and a nan, currently living in Waipetū, but she's also a kahu ninja at her core. Crystal is a connector of people and stars and seeds. Actually, I wouldn't put it past her if she takes you into her kitchen at some point during this webinar and shows you her newly born hue seeds that are kakano that are growing in her kitchen. And yeah, you can expect from, what can you expect from Crystal? Maybe, definitely fire, a little bit of spice. She runs it straight. And yeah, she's a whole bunch of fun. So no mai haramai aku tinos. I think we'll go over to you guys actually. Let's just build a little bit more rapport with our virtual whānau out there. Maybe a cool place to start is, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about you guys? And I guess how Tākaro exists naturally in the spaces and places that you live, learn, work, play, all healthy families 101. I'll hand it over to you first, Rangi.
Ata mari e tātou, ko rangi mari meals tōku ingoa, ai he uri tēnei o ngai tahu o te atiawa hoki. Aha ko te rai te puake au ki raro i a pangarui a papata, ki te taho te whanga o hokianga nui a kupe. Kei konei tonu a hau e noho ana, ko whanau mai te reanga tua ono e te puake ana I runga I te mata o tēnei whenua. Yeah, rangi maari a hau, I live in the hokianga. Born and bred and raising the 6th generation of our whānau, just outside of Pangaru on the north side, te hauraro o hokianga. How does Tākaro exist within our ao? So if you know Raro hokianga, that everyone gets lost trying to find it. We live down dirt roads and we live out of services. We live with very little infrastructure. Like for reals, we have about 5 meters of concrete on our whole whenua. And that concrete has existed for 3 generations, I think. It's where we all learned how to ride our bikes. We know where the potholes are. We know where the mud gathers. And that piece of concrete is a treasured little part of the whole farm of multi-generations and multi-households. So in saying that our Tākaro exists outside of structure, it's really unstructured, it's organic, it flows with connection between people and taiao, but more so with taiao being our greatest facilitator, being our greatest kind of co-regulator, I suppose. Taiao not only is the theatre in which Tākaro exists for us, but it actually facilitates and deepens our Tākaro. So we don't rely on infrastructural physical spaces like Papa Tākaro. Probably the only physical infrastructure we rely on is that piece of 5 meters of concrete. So for us, our relationship with Tākaro goes through kind of the portal of taiao, and taiao creates healthy risks. It creates co-regulation. It creates sensory engagements that go beyond some of these man-made environments that we find ourselves in. So yeah, my tamariki, my iramutu, me and my siblings, we grew up in mud. You know, we grew up with dirty fingernails and kind of haphazard clothing and all of that. And that brought with it playfulness and really humble ideas of how to connect and how to find joy in really humble ways. So yeah, not a lot has changed through our generations of growing up here. You know, putting the net out for our mullet and our kahawai, that's all Tākaro, right? And it's intergenerational, but also you get mahi outputs from it. So it's practical, and all of those things mishmash into being quite rich experiences of Tākaro. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Love. I think there's heaps. See, I told you fellas, she took sound bites. There's heaps of things to look into that throughout our hour-long session today. And just a bit of FYI, Rangi and I always have these like online messenger chat exchanges. I'm like, no, I wish that for my baby. And she's just like, no, Taupai doesn't have as much concrete as you do. He'd probably be nailing the skateboard by now. And so we're all just having a little bit of FOMO about, I have the FOMO about not being in the taiao. Rangi has a bit of FOMO for babies and, you know, the little, like she says, the little stretch of concrete that they have to learn how to ride a bike. And so, yeah, it's awesome just to know the differences and to understand a little bit of what goes on in those two specific, distinct spaces, taiao. Over to you, Crystal. No mai, hara mai, sis.
Tēnā tātou, me mihi ka tika ki a koe, Sister Nick, nau e whakarangatira ana i tēnei webinar me ki. Koutou anō hoki, koutou kua umai ki tēnei kōrero, te tēpū with the aunties. Ai, ko Crystal Piki po tēnei, he kawai whakapapa tēnei mai ngā tika hununu ki tamatea. Whakawhiti atu i te moana nui a ki wai te taho tōku pāpā no mangaia ia ko Ngāti Wara te iwi. E noho ana mātou tōku whānau ki waiwhetū, koenei te tūranga waiwai o taku hoa tāne. So, yeah, I guess thinking about Tākaro for me, I guess it hasn't, especially over the last 3 years, hasn't been static. It's something that shifted and reshaped itself depending on like where we're at in life and like who's around us and what we're holding. So we lived in Otani. So those of you that are familiar with Otani is a one shop, one pub type rural environment. And then we moved to Te Aute College for a little bit. And then we've moved back here to Waiwhetu. So as a whānau, I guess we've moved through different environments and life transitions. And with each shift, the way in how we engage in Tākaro has looked a little different. There've been seasons where time has been a bit scarce and the emotional load has been a bit heavy, and Tākaro hasn't really been something that happens easily or even spontaneously. But even in those moments, we've like tried to keep the wairua of Tākaro alive, like especially for our tamariki. So lately, much of our Tākaro has been interwoven with a lot of community kaupapa here in Waiwhetu. We've been part of a revitalisation kaupapa of puanga ritinga o ngā pau o te tau, where we kind of show up not just as participants, but as whānau carrying our tamariki alongside us. So there aren't always spaces that are designed for Tākaro, but we've done our best to activate that playful energy anyway. And so whether it's creating like little moments of joy during hui or letting our tamariki roam freely in the taiao, like we kind of often bring elements into, you know, these creative elements into those kind of structured settings. So that's all Tākaro to us, right? And like sometimes it's not always about being big, bold, and like the expressions of play. Like it's pretty much like what Rangi had mentioned. It's like it's about holding the space for curiosity, for that lightness and presence, like even in the mahi, in the middle of our mahi or transition. So that's kind of been the lesson, that Tākaro isn't just something we do when we have spare time. It's something we carry with us, or that reclamation in little small pockets. So we're quite lucky like the extension of our backyard in Waifetu is within our pepeha. So Pukeatua is just really literally on the backyard. And the awa Waifetu is kind of just like literally like you can touch it, it's next door. So our tamariki are very fortunate in an urban setting that they live in their pepeha, they live in their pa. But I guess it's like pērā ki ngā kōrero rangi, like how we facilitate that organic, unstructured tākaro. Yeah.
Awesome, sis. There's heaps in that too. Again, pepeha play, I heard pōwhiri play, hui play, what all of that looks like. So yeah, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But before we do that, I've forgotten all about talking, maybe just sharing a little bit more about who oi are. You know, who are we? What do we do? People talk about oi magic. What is that? And yeah, maybe give us an example. I'm going to go back to you, Crystal, only because you're wearing all the colors today, and I feel like you're going to come with a colorful kōrero on this. Who is oi? Are oi? Oh, you're on mute. Stin.
Of course I'm on mute. No pressure anyway, but I guess I can leave it tarangi to give the you know how oi got its name, but I guess in its full context, like we're actually a group of wahine that live we live in different parts of the country, and I think when we met, we met in a conference space. And you know, I always believe that our ancestors, like our ancestresses, connected us because we all had this different vibe about us. And one thing that I guess I value is that we give each other permission to sit within our own creative expression. And you know, your tribe, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? And this is probably an ohu of wahine that where we can vibe with each other, but we vibe in, it's contextualized in so many different ways based on our different environments and our different experiences. But as wahine Māori, I guess one of the things that I appreciate most is that quite often we are in isolation as wahine in general, right? And so we get this opportunity to kind of reconnect and share different wānanga, share different kōrero, share different experiences, but actually in the most playful way. And we get to bring all our out the gate ideas into spaces, even into our facilitation spaces, in a way that it's honoured, it's not judged, but it's actually celebrated. That it's something that we probably wouldn't do personally, but it brings this real newfound, it's quite liberating, so to speak, but it brings this newfound admiration in terms of what we can accomplish as wahine Māori when we are given the permission to sit within our own creative expression of what our ancestors gifted us. So
what does it look like though? Like, what does it look like in the flesh, sis? Because that's the crazy part.
Okay, so what it looks like is dressing in your most brightest, colourful outfits. Like we always have these dress themes. What it looks like is bringing forth your random ideas on how you're going to facilitate a workshop. So, for example, I brought a what do you call them?
OHP.
An OHP. You know, those things that we used to have in the 80s.
They'll be in the like
workshop.
heritage stores at this stage. They might not exist. They definitely aren't in a store.
To a workshop, talking, and I think that was during a matariki period, where whānau were able to use the OHP and design their own kāhui for matariki. So What else does it look like? What else does it look like, Rangi? Tell us a little bit about oi.
Rangi, hit us with some gold.
Whenever I talk about oi, I just think about the word, and it means to shatter, to disrupt, to grow and be abundant. So it's all these things. There's no dichotomy in that where it's like to grow and be abundant plus to shatter and agitate are all what we are. And we embody that as a collective. And then when we're talking about, permission, we actually don't wait for permission. we create our own permission collectively to own space. And so when I think about Tākaro and the world of Tākaro and mana wahine, it's about reclamation. It's about saying the world tells us, particularly us, all different shades and looks and sizes of Indigenous women, to be a certain way, to be self-sacrificing, to be gentle, to be of service, and to care and love in a certain way. And I just totally reject that. It's just such a narrow story of the complexity, the depth, the power that Indigenous women hold. And it flattens our fullness. It really makes us a one-dimensional item or mea when we're not. We all know that wahine Māori are complex, and that as a result, our Tākaro is complex. And that because of that complexity, it freaks patriarchy out, especially Western patriarchy. And like when we did this all our insights around Tākaro, particularly when we dove into the mana wahine post-colonial empowerment space around Tākaro, I think one of the greatest things I learned from that was we can grieve or be angry or be fierce and be gentle and loving and joyful all at the same time. And that Tākaro doesn't have to be this big grand gesture or this big physical manifestation. It doesn't have to be expressed in a one-dimensional or narrow definition. And that when we walked into that kaupapa, we had our eyes open, but we didn't have our wisdom expanded. And when we started talking to kuia and different wahine around what does wahine Tākaro look, feel, sound, all of those, we were hit with some big kaupapa to digest, such as it looks like a gaze to the baby you're feeding in the middle of the night. It looks like a smirk in return. It looks like that first little chuckle. It looks like and feels like ukaipo. It looks and it feels like being in the grip of deep grief and sacrifice. Tākaro looks like all of these things. And no wonder the world's freaked out of it. Like, it's so hard. It's unbound. It's non-linear. And it pops up in the most random and confronting of ways. And one of the other, I guess, kaupapa around that was it emerges in our sexual identities and in our sexual playfulness, our pleasure. And that for the Western world that we currently occupy, having a liberated woman talk about like playfulness and pleasure, especially in the sexual side of things, it's really, really confronting and scary. Like, no wonder like Alston Best in an interview, no Māori woman, like, no wonder he was like, oh no, I'll go over there to, to the male space, because that's what I know. And so Tākaro is a resistance. A Māori woman's play, Tākaro, is resistance of the current structures that are trying to form and shape us in a certain way. And so oi is resistance. That's all it is. It's shatter, it's to disrupt, it's resist the confinements of wahine, tamariki, our tāne, our kaumatua, to be, not to wait for permission, but to create that permission and stand in our own authority. And it doesn't have to be in an angry way. It can be in a colorful way. It can be in a agile way. It can be in a super strategic way. And that's the beauty of finding your sisterhood, or finding your a diversity that we naturally occupy. You know, we shouldn't be hanging out with people all cut from the same cloth. Like, that's not our styles. We want difference. We want a diversity, because it expands, just like Tākaro, it expands our world. So yeah, sorry, I went down a rabbit hole with that one.
I relate a little bit because I ran a wānanga last year. So I was at Takiura, and my kaiako thought it would be an awesome opportunity to throw me a funny whakatauki to be able to unpack for everybody. It's actually where the pau came from. I created that pau for this particular aromatawai. Anyways, the whakatauki that I got given was mā ngā raho ka tū te ure. And so I'm just like, straight away she knew that that's my jam, you know, a little bit of play, a little bit of feminine, unapologetically wahine kōrero. And I created this kind of lesson, I guess, around kind of sex ed. But from a Te Ao Māori point of view, we talked about hine ahuone and tāne mahuta, and how tāne mahuta, you know, was trying to discover the uwha of hine ahuone that for the first time, and in doing so, he put his appendage in all the different orifices up and down your body until he found the right one. And it was so, like, I got so much positive feedback from the Māori, in particular the rangatahi in the room, actually. Like, they really related to that, because they'd been in these real awkward conversations about sex ed. And so they came into this one, and because it was underpinned by Te Ao Māori, it kind of gave a different āhua, gave an permission, like you say, to be playful with it. But funnily enough, I went to go and run that same wānanga with a non-Māori audience. In particular, there was this one man who just could not see the relevance, and yet worked specifically with rangatahi. I was like, you don't see how this could relate, this type of kōrero could relate to the rangatahi that you work with? And he's just like, absolutely not. He was so uncomfortable with the way in which it was presented, with the way in which we were talking so openly about sex. And so I guess I want to move us to one of the insights that we landed on with regards to te mana o te wahine. So we talk about the whakatauki kia kawea tātou e te rehia, e te harikoa, e te mataraharaha. And behind that story is the story of Teniro and Kai. And whilst we preface most of the time the kōrero about Teniro, a male, Kai, a male, and how, you know, they were in, Kai kind of ran away with or killed the tohora. But not much is said about the kahui wahine who were involved in mesmerizing, hypnotizing Kai to be able to reveal his identity, and therefore get retribution. And so one of the wahine, when we went to go and delve deep, actually a few wahine actually, delve deep into it, said, when it comes to the whakatauki, kia kawea tātou e te rehia, the fun, the happy, the joy elements are often always talked about. So the happy la type of side of fun. But kawea means to be carried away by rehia, by joy. And in this, I feel the Tākaro kōrero is missing the pleasure aspect. The feminine sexual energy is missing. And so I guess I come to you guys around, you know, why do you think that's the case? We've spoken a little bit about it, but what can we do, more importantly, what can we do to bring some of that āhua back into our ao, in particular to whakamana the wahine in that space, kohine wahine?
I can almost see, like, I don't know if any of those that are viewing this webinar have seen the video. I think it was like many years ago, and it was at a kōrero. But when we think about those wahine, I can just envision like pānia papa, because it was all about making Kai laugh, right?
Yeah.
And so that you could see his niho, and I can imagine her like, you know, like,
yes.
but like those, it's for our parents and, the generation of our parents and our grandparents. And I guess some of that is like, the aspects of colonization and the introduction of Christianity, that those types of kōrero were just like shut down. And I think it's very important now with how our ao has evolved and how everything is so accessible through technology, how we able to bring those conversations alive, especially for our tamariki, because if we don't enable very creative kōrero and creative ways to structure that conversation around sexuality and sensuality, they are going to learn it from somewhere else that can be quite harmful. So I think, that we actually just need to be brave and courageous and say, you know what, this has to happen, because if it doesn't happen, it's gonna, someone else is gonna transmit that knowledge to our tamariki, when we have the responsibility and obligation to perpetuate our whakapapa in a way that honors our DNA, that honors our ancestors. But if we don't take that responsibility now, then that permission is actually going to be given to somebody else, or to something else, with the way and how technology works today, that can be quite harmful. And I think, our parents and, our grandparents, they didn't know how to have those conversations, because it was just, you just don't have that conversation. So I think it's important how we start doing, delving into more rangahau around those types of pūrākau, and how those pūrākau can help shape the metaphor on how we have these conversations, especially with our rangatahi and tamariki.
Yeah, and because that pūrākau about Hine Ahuone and Tāne Mahuta reveals so much around consent, permission, in the context of that ao. So really
and
important.
I think on that note, like, do we really think that Taranga conceived, grew and birthed Maui without joy and playfulness and humor? Like, do we really truly believe that Maui was created from a place of grief and heaviness only? Like, these are the questions that we need to start surfacing around using our critical minds to unlearn and relearn some of our pūrākau that have been retold in a certain way. Same as, hine tūtama, hine nui te pō, do we really believe that she transitioned out of shame, or out of intention, out of agility, out of ritual? And then Mahuika, is she that unhinged, like, cray lady in a cave, or is she passionate? Is she dynamic and complex? Like, these are the questions that we have to critically ask around when we're receiving information. This is about not just being a receiver. We are the main character in our whakapapa, right? And rather than being passive in that, it's about stepping into that space and not doubting mātauranga, but critically understanding it within context, and then expressing it in the complexity that it deserves, rather than the kind of flattening of truth that we see. And like, I think that's a really important kaupapa, especially that came out of our rangahau within like wahine, atua wahine, and those spaces around Tākaro. The other thing that popped up in my mind while Crystal, the sis, was talking, was that if safety is our first language in life, from conception, all the way from conception right through, if safety is the first language, we are always looking for cues of safety. That's how we're wired. Then Tākaro is our second language, and those two, he hoa haere raua, safety and Tākaro, they need to be in equilibrium. And so they balance each other. So, you know, our internal safety, our external tākaro, and our internal tākaro, they all are in commune together. And so I think, especially for practitioners in the tākaro, in the play, in the sport and leisure spaces, we cannot go past thinking about safety, not only physical safety, but emotional, spiritual, cultural, social safety. He ho haere tērā, they are hand in hand. That yes, we can tākaro to regulate ourselves. It helps regulate us. But imagine if we're already regulated, got the tools and the ancestral toolkit to regulate already. Imagine where else tākaro goes. You know, imagine how much more expansive it can be if we understand how safety and tākaro go hand in hand. And so I think that's another thing around wahine, feeling safe, but also creating safety ourselves and our sisters and our kohine and ngā uri whakaheke. But we've got the ammunition of our ahurea Māori, right? This full expansive toolkit through pūrākau, through miri, through ori, through all of these things that give us the tools to make tākaro safe and expansive for us, for all of us. Tātou katoa. Yeah.
Like that. I'm going to shift us now to a conversation a little bit around equity. So, you know, much of the mahi that we did was kind of delving deeper into Wāhine Perspectives because the underlying goal there was to amplify the voices of wahine. What about some of the other minority groups that are not always talked about in regards to tākaro? From an equity lens, how do we uplift the voices of those minority communities? And those might include our pepe, who perhaps don't have a voice for themselves, our takatapui, our tangata haua, you know, and then I guess also in re-indigenizing, are we at risk of privileging certain groups in regards to access to tākaro? Like, can we have a little bit of a kōrero around that, the minority groups, and then some of those risks when it comes to re-indigenizing and some of the practices surrounding tākaro?
One thing that we found that was really, quite, we weren't looking for it. It came to us through Te Hihiri Te Ngākau when we did Tai Tokero Insights, was that we went and interviewed kaimahi who work in the family violence, domestic violence space. Because, you know, you look at the stats and you think, well, if we're going to only interview people who know tākaro, then we also have a obligation to understand how tākaro doesn't exist as well, to ensure that we can create suffice conditions for all of our hapori to access. You know, some of the stories from those kaimahi who have worked in community development 30, 40 years would say we go into probably more homes than not where we see no evidence of tākaro or no evidence of joy. And that tamariki are kind of their idea of tākaro is to go to the playground so that mum and dad, uncle and auntie can have a party, you know? And so those are some of those harsh realities that we need to balance at the same time as reclaiming our ngā tākaro Māori, you know, reclaiming our mātauranga and reclaiming some of our traditional toolkit of tākaro. At the same time, we also have to understand that there are some realities where tākaro, just the conditions, because safety and tākaro he hoa haere need to be considered, and safety needs to be heightened before tākaro can be accessed at times. You know, that is some of those hard realities, and us in in the play world or practitioners, you know, we need to understand why, you know, that we're running a workshop and that person or that tamaiti can't access joy. Well, it's our job to create safety for them, even in that little pocket of time, to be able to access some sort of joy. It's not our measure, not what we measure. Like we shouldn't expect everyone to get to that point of ecstatic joy. For some, it's like that they just partook. Pai tēnā, yeah. So yeah, that was one of the things that came out of He Hiri Te Ngākau, was that like joy and playfulness and lightness is not accessed by all, and safety is something we need to really consider in the revitalization of tākaro.
Yeah. I wonder whether we can, from that, maybe have a kōrero about the kind of continuum of tākaro. I don't know if that's the right word, but you've got your real high energy, fast-paced taonga tākaro out there with playing kia ora he kind of, you know, physically active tākaro. And then you've got like your the spaces and places where it's kind of whakatau wairua, where it's all about maurito. Can you talk to us a little bit about, you know, what that looks like from a tākaro lens as well, maybe Crystal?
Yeah, just to I guess just quickly, just to touch on some of that kōrero, like around what Rangi just had mentioned first, is that you know, like, I think it's important that we remind whānau that tākaro doesn't need to look like what the world sells as play. You know, tākaro can be simple. And I think one thing that I learned in some of the mahi that we did with mokopuna korikori, and I can see what the sis is online too, Hirani, the sis Hirani Hutana, who's an amazing tākaro practitioner as well. But like, tākaro can be sacred, you know, it can be a ritual, it can be 5 minutes, it can be an act of reclamation. And so, like, one thing that I guess is important when we speak about tākaro is not just about fun. Like, it's about survival, it's about healing, it's about hope. It's how our tamariki regulate, how, you know, our whanaungatanga relationships are built, you know, how laughter and joy re-enters the whare after silence. Reclaiming tākaro is reclaiming the right to feel safe, which is what you've spoken about, Rangi, that safety, to be expressive, like to be human. So even when the world outside or inside, like, you know, when it feels hard, you know, these are all the different layers and elements of tākaro. And especially when we think about, you know, our whānau that actually don't get to, it doesn't exist. But it only doesn't exist because these conversations are not had everywhere. Like, when we talk about tākaro ki te ao, you know, it's about how we express those messages and, you know, show those different layers and the different diverse ranges of how tākaro can be applied in any environment. But anyway, sorry, I just wanted to touch on what the sis Rangi said. You know me, I'm a nakaro ears, so naka ears. So what was the last pātai again, sis?
Oh, sheesh. Oh, it's just, well, maybe leading into, you know, it can be simple. Tākaro can look like anything. I'm look at everyone's laughing. They clearly know you. Tākaro can be anything. Tākaro can be simple. It's not always what we think. Like, I think there's we've done quite a bit of mahi ourselves in dispelling myths around tākaro as this finite thing, like taonga tākaro, you know? What else is it? You know, if it's not just this thing that everybody, you know, playing at playgrounds, tākaro at kura, some of those real visible things, what else is it? What else could it look like? Like you said, ritual, what else?
Yeah, I think there's magic in the mundane, you know, so how do we turn mundane activities, how does tākaro make them magic? And we all know that all people who are brought up doing gardens, whānau gardens, or going to get the net in when you've got a big catch, or getting up early for whatever, the mahi. We all have memories of turning mundane tasks into these magical experiences. And Tākaro is that as well. And I think it doesn't have to be loud to be valid or visible.
Yes.
For me and how I am bringing my children up, imagination is my greatest gift to my children. It's like I watch my children engage with the world, and it's magical because they've been allowed and they've been safe to explore the expansiveness of their imagination. They're not scared of their inner self. They're not scared of where their thoughts might take them. They are unbound, and as all our babies should be, but they're not, that's the privilege my children have. I think there's something really cool in, like, for us, and now one of the things I love about our Tākaro is it's not driven by physical toys, right? So when we want to go shopping, we go down to the inlet where all the driftwood gets piled up.
Hauhake.
And hauhake, like unlimited shopping, the boot gets filled up with all these pieces of wood. The sticks are just the most magical things for a short amount of time, and then we have a bonfire. It's like, so it's thinking about the world facilitates the inner self, and that relationship between roto and waho. And if our tamariki can feel safe in their own imagination to be expansive and unbound, then it actually doesn't matter what physical environment they're in. They will find joy and Tākaro wherever they go and within whatever mundane. That's what I mean about the magic of mundane, right? That now you can put our tamariki to mahi, and that it might be the most mundane activity, but they're going to find that magic, even if it's the most random magic. And you're like, how did you get there? But that's the gift of that quiet Tākaro, the imaginative Tākaro, the kind of small inner workings that we do.
Yeah. I wonder what advice we have for whānau, because, much of what we've spoken about today actually doesn't cost anything. And so it kind of contradicts a little bit the conversation about sustainable investment into the Tākaro space. And so I'm thinking one of the things that I know came out of Hihiri Te Ngākau, Tākaro Insights from Te Tai Tokero, was whānau up there were really keen on using tū manawa funding, for example, to purchase a bunch of shovels so that they could pass on knowledge about grave digging. And one of the outcomes of that was tamariki in urupā, learning kōrero tuku iho, learning about whakapapa and urupā play. And urupā play looks like all sorts of different things too, eh? Like it looks like climbing the rākau, grabbing some roe and going and giving it to your whānau. It looks like in our urupā, the Penetito urupā, there's rabbits that dig burrows in there. And so all of a sudden our tamariki turn into rapiti and they're digging burrows. And it's a real fulfilling, but less visible again, Tākaro wāhi. And so, yeah, I wonder whether you guys have any responses for maybe some of those whānau out there who are wanting to whakapiki, some of the opportunities in the Tākaro space by tapping into some of the opportunities around investment. Anyone, sorry. Oh, Crystal, we'll go to you, sis.
Why do I have to answer the boring question?
Oh, come on, it's not a boring question. This is a practical question.
I think when we think about the term investment, it's, what are you investing in? When we think about Tākaro, and, whether you are a practitioner, like, what are you investing in for your community? Because, as we've expressed, like Tākaro can come in a lot of different shapes and forms. And I think if you were to think about investment, one of the key things would be, how do you invest in tākaro in the home? Like, we can create all these different kaupapa, we can create all these different community kaupapa, but one of the biggest things that you can do as a responsibility, if you are a tākaro practitioner, or if you're even thinking about creating something tākaro, is how do you whakamana, whakapiki wairua for our whānau to incorporate the tākaro in the home. And I think, like, that was probably a kaupapa that we worked on with Toi Tangata for the mokopuna korikori, and that was shaped around an ACC kaupapa delving into the whānau harm space and exploring the hypothesis around, unstructured organic play enables self-regulation. And so myself and the Cis Harani Hutana, we were very privileged that we were able to sit with whānau from different walks of life to explore what that tākaro looks like in the home, and to be able to invest in resourcing our whānau to get that kickstart, and in terms of how that can be woven within a whānau routine. So part of that was looking at all those the sacred spaces, or the full-on spaces, like the dinner time, the bath times, the wā moi, the wā oho, and how we were able to delve into the different elements of rongo, all that different sensory that helps our tamariki regulate themselves during the different times, of very important times of the day. And so when we think about tākaro ki te ao, you're right, sis, it's not just about kiorahi. It's not just about, all of these these activities that require costs. Like, we want to be able to invest in non-cost effective ways in growing tākaro within whānau, because the idea about it is, we want whānau to look at ways in how we can regulate ourselves, even as pakeke. And, as the sis Rangi had mentioned, like, there's that balance with safety and tākaro, and that can look, that can be different for different generations. But if you are looking at investment, it's definitely in the whānau. Like, I think that's in the home. Like, what does that look like in your home? What does your environment look like? How do you shape? What are the characteristics and nature of your tamariki? We've got 6 tamariki, and we are working on different characteristics. Like, one's good at singing, one likes singing, but it's like her mum, not good at singing. So, we got to try and find those balances in our home. But we also need the tools in terms of how we navigate that too. And we don't often get the opportunity to share these discussions with other whānau on how do you identify the different characteristics, or how do you enable play to happen naturally and organically in the whare. But koia taku, I'll probably just pahu on, but
I'm cracking up because whānau, we had a whole ass structure that we did not stick to at all. And we kind of all, I think, knew that. But now we've got about 5-6 minutes left. And so I want to come to you both and just see if there's anything that you may have missed that you're like, nah, that's banger. That's a banger. I got to share that with whānau. Over to you first, Rangi, and then and Crystal, and then I'll whakakapi for us. Oh, Rangi. Oh, yeah, there you are.
I don't know how to finish it all up.
You've had some killer sound bites today, and they've all come through the little comments.
Yay.
So I think you've done well on your key takeaways. Just whatever. What is one thing you want to leave the whānau with?
I think this is where my bold ideas start getting a little bit like unhinged. So take what you want from this.
Wait for it, whānau, wait for it.
I'm really curious and interested in how parenting is a spiritual practice. And I think that aligns with Tākaro as a spiritual practice, that it is a spiritual expression, that it is ritualized. For me and how we live, we spend so much time at home, right? Tākaro is about finesse. Is that a word? Finessing, or I don't know, like the little tiny minute. It's not a word. I can see it on your face, but it's those tiny little looks that you give, or it's the vibe that you have when you walk into the house, or it's the little like flirtatious touch when you walk past your partner between chores. It's like in these minute micro spaces that we can explore how we bring joy, how we affect the vibrations, the like feelings within our home. And like I'm really interested in it as a spiritual practice. So that we're deepening, we're intentional, but we're not trying to go for the big banger, like the fireworks all at once. We're wanting to go for I've got today we had a regulated day where we had some ups and downs, but we had a gentle look in our eyes to everyone, or we smirked, like those subtle things. And I think if we walk around with a little bit of a smile on our face, it actually those are those minor micro things that take stress away and uplift ourselves and posture and all of that. So told you, this is where I get a bit unhinged and I'm like experimental with my ideas, but that's something I'm really, really interested in, because I just think that there's lots of micro stresses in our lives, especially as wahine. What does the micro joy look like? What are the micro moments in our life look like where we can actually turn micro stress into micro play?
Love.
I'll leave that with you guys. Sorry.
That's wanting to commission us to go and do the deep dive into that. No mai hara mai o putia tautoko. Crystal, final thoughts? Oh, we've got 2 minutes, sis. Sound bites.
I was thinking the same thing. Oh, this is an investment opportunity, and maybe like all the participants that are there, we could create an ohu and start looking at what that practice looks like. That was actually beautiful, Rangi. And then I'm just like, oh yeah, maybe I should have went first so that you could do the mic drop last, But it's, I guess, what was the question again, sis?
Last, what do you want to leave the whānau with, sis?
Oh, okay, yes. What do I want to leave the whānau with? I guess it's just really, how do you identify when you are in those little micro elements of Tākaro? Like, how do you actually identify? And sometimes, quite often, even as parents, we're hard on ourselves, and it just feels like that we're not doing enough. But it's important to acknowledge that, like what the sis was saying, actually, that's what I'm doing. It's like I'm just like validating all your kōrero, sis, and not bringing anything to the forefront of my own. But anyway, it's being able to identify the little elements of play, to celebrate that, and then how you can extend that. And I think it's important that play is not just, no, you can't play. Oh, no, don't touch that. Play is curiosity. What we want to do is just fill the whatu manawa of all of ourselves with good experiences, so that when it comes time to, especially around the regulation side of things and the nervous system, like it actually helps when you have good experiences, especially around Tākaro, that you're able to shapeshift easy. But I'm still learning that whānau, by the way. So maybe I need to do more Tākaro.
Hey, always in this space. Me, whānau. I'm mindful of time. Just a little bit of a quick reminder before I whakakapi, because I'm going to forget about it. We really value your feedback. We've been getting quite a bit of feedback in from our last toi ako. And so there's some toy merch up for grabs. Please do that. I think it's like 5 or 6 questions at the end of this. Do it real quick. It's tick boxy. And go in the drawer. We've also got Play Week coming up, Te whānau, 20th to the 26th of October. Tonu mai ki ngā kaupapa a toi tangata, kia anga whakamua tātou katoa. But yeah, just kei aku mā reikura, kutua kano oi, tēnei mātou e tuku ana I ngā mihi mai o hā kia koutou, me mihi ka tika ki te ihi, te wihi, me te wairua Māori o te wānanga nei, o te rā ki o koutou ngākau hihiri ki te kaupapa nei. Kaore e kore kua whai wāhi, kua whai hua tātou katoa I ngā kurahuna o roto I o koutou kōrero. So yeah, just he taonga tuku iho kia kōrua, he puna mā tauranga, nō reira, tēnā koutou I te whānau, mauri ora kia tātou.